Hello, children. It's Grandma Carla, and we are reading more of Abby Lost at Sea. I don't know about y'all, but this book is getting really exciting, and I am enjoying it a whole bunch just reading it to you. Chapter 13. A sailor let down a rope ladder as the skiff came alongside the barkentine in choppy waves. It was hard to stand and move toward the ladder, and it was even harder for Abby to climb up the rope as the sea heaved. Luke had gone up first, and he leaned down to grab Abby's hand. "Here now," said Mr. Job, as soon as he'd climbed aboard. "Why aren't you two sit at the boat bow and bide your time? We'll be ready in the ship, and we need you out of harm's way." Abby and Luke settled themselves against the bulkhead near the bow, watching the ship's skiff make a trip back to the dock, collecting sailors. From the bay, Lahaina looked peaceful, with its twinkling lights reflecting on the water, but they could still hear the rowdy sounds of wild sailors from the shore. "It's much nicer traveling out in the open than under a tarp," Luke said quietly. Abby only nodded. She had grown tired from their long day. Leaning against the bulkhead and against each other, with the sea rocking gently, the two drifted off to sleep. Abby kicked out violently. The shark had passed just out of reach, with beady black eyes targeting her eerily, its jaws opening and closing as if it were tasting her scent. Then she couldn't see it, didn't know where it was until its rough skin scraped her bare leg as it came in to take a bite. "Ah!" she thrashed as the sandpiper's rough skin grazed her leg again. "Abby!" Luke shook her awake, but the realization that she had only been dreaming came slowly. She noticed the ship rocking, saw distant stars behind Luke's head, and heard the rigging squeal as the sailors pulled lines through the tackle. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and looked east. Lahaina was no longer there. "Luke, we're moving!" He grinned at her and pointed above them. Sure enough, the sails were full, pale in the moonlight. "I woke as we got underway," he said, "but I thought I'd let you sleep. Only you must have been having a nightmare. You were dreaming about Aunt Dagmar." "Were you dreaming about Aunt Dagmar?" His teeth shone with white pearls. "Nothing like that," Abby answered, but suddenly some sandpaper brushed her leg, making her jump. Luke reached across her and scooted the rough hemp rope off to the side. Abby sighed as she realized that is what made her dream of shark skin scratching her. "I guess all's well that ends well," she said. Her worries had been silly. Soon she'd arrive in Oahu, and would see Ma and Pa and Sarah. God, I am so grateful. The sounds of men at work on the ship and the slap of water against the hull eased Abby from the dread of her dream as she smoothed her dress and began braiding her hair to keep it from flying in her face. Captain Chandler's voice boomed out above everything else. "Hoist the jib, Mr. Jackal." "Aye, Captain," came the reply. Abby's fingers stopped. She gaped in stunned silence. Luke smoothed the stray hair off her face, concern etched across his features. "What is it, Ab?" "That voice," she whispered. "It's the sailor from town." Luke noticed the sailor who'd answered the captain. He was headed their way. The muscular man bent to release the jib line from its cleat. For a moment, Luke could not tell if it was Jackal or not, but when he straightened, there was no mistaking the black beard and the ruthless face that greeted him. "Out of me way, boy," he shouted as he heaved the line, stretching the sail taut. Luke watched as Abby rose quickly. When Jackal tied off the line, he began winding the remainder of it into a coil. That's when he spotted Abby. His mouth opened as his eyebrows drew together in a menacing line. "What?" he shouted angrily. "The devil's teeth! What's a girl doing on board?" Abby's heart thudded with fear, but she planted her feet firmly on the moving deck and took a deep breath. "We're traveling to Oahu with Captain Chandler," she said. She was mortified to hear her voice quiver. "That's right," Captain Chandler said, coming up behind Jackal. "Do you have a problem with my decision, sailor?" Jackal pierced Abby with a look of hatred. "Everyone knows a girl's bad luck aboard a ship. There's a reason sailors don't like women aboard." The captain put an arm around Abby's shoulder. "She is my guest and will be treated as one. Do I make myself clear, Mr. Jackal?" The threat of discipline was plain in his voice. Aye, ye have, Jackal scowled at Abby before he threw down the coil of rope at her feet and stomped off. Jinxed the ship, ye have, he said under his breath. Abby could hear murmurs of disapproval coming from the men nearby. Were they agreeing with Jackal or disgusted with his behavior? Abby, you and Luke join me for a late supper before bed. Come with me to my cabin, the captain said. He led the way down the hatch below decks, giving an order to the cook in the galley to serve him in his room. As they headed toward the aft of the ship, they ran into two sailors whispering in the hall. The men grew silent as the captain neared. Abby's sense of apprehension increased. When they reached his cabin, Captain Chandler pulled out a chair for Abby to sit on at the small dining table. She was grateful to be away from the prying eyes of the sailors. Taking in her surroundings, she was amazed at how beautiful the captain's cabin was. A row of broad windows at the back of the ship overlooked the sea, and she could see stars through them. The captain's bunk was built into the wall, but was covered with a thick quilt and in the wedding ring pattern. Above his bunk hung two paintings, one of a beautiful lady with dark eyes and hair, the other of a young boy in a sailor suit with a wide collar and breeches. When he saw Abby staring at them, Captain Chandler explained, "That is my wife, Isabel, and our son, David. He went to sea with me, but we lost him last year." A quietness descended over the cabin. Luke cleared his throat, his face almost as stricken as the captain's. "I am sorry for your loss, sir." Luke lost his family too, Captain Chandler, to cholera, Abby explained. "My sympathies, son." The captain rose and paced. "To lose your loved ones is a great cross to bear." He cleared his throat as if trying to swallow some emotion. "When I saw you two in Lahaina, I knew I had to help you get home. There could be no greater gift that I could give than to return a child, once thought dead, to a grieving parent." He paused, then resumed his pacing with his hands behind his back. "I'm sorry for the words of Mr. Jackal. He's given me worries ever since I signed him on in Brazil last year to replace my son. We were short-handed, and I had to take on whomever I could. I admit I have not attended to the men this year as I normally do. My loss and my worry about Isabel have occupied me. But now I sense a growing darkness." The captain stopped, as if he thought better of divulging any more. "At any rate, I plan to remedy the situation soon." Just then the cook entered, bearing a silver tray of dishes. Abby and Luke smelled the delicious food and lost no time in joining the captain in dinner. Roast pig, potatoes, sliced fruit, and sweetbread made up their meal. After a delightful feast, the captain had his coffee and told tales of his travels along the coast of South America. In the midst of it, the cook came in to clear the plates, stacking them back on the silver tray, and left the cabin. After the door shut, however, a loud clattering in the hallway brought Captain Chandler to his feet. He strode to his door and peered into the dim hallway. Then, as Abby and Luke watched, the captain backed up with his hands above his head, rage spreading over his face. "Mr. Jackal, what is this?" Jackal erupted in a laugh that sent chills down Abby's back. He stalked in the cabin, waving a pistol at the captain's heart. "You're not so high and mighty now, are ye, Captain?" When he laughed again, his rotting teeth and black, beady eyes reminded Abby of the shark in her nightmare, watching her with icy malice. "Get up, ye useless brats. Ye can join your captain on the deck for a little announcement I'm going to make." He aimed the pistol at Abby and Luke briefly, then pointed it back at the captain. They filed out and marched up the hatch to the deck. When they got there, the sailors on deck joined them. "Here now, what's going on with ye?" Mr. Job asked, clearly distressed. "If'n ye want to bellyache with the captain, ye can join him, Mr. Job. There's plenty of room at the bottom of the sea for ye too." Then Jackal threw back his head and roared, his black beard piercing the sky. 6 sailors joined in. Abby could see that they were already in on his devious plans. "We be taking your ship, Captain, for we've plans of our own. First, we be off to China to sell the booty. Then we'll return here for buried treasure." There were gasps from the other 14 men who hadn't known about the mutiny. "Anyone who doesn't join us can gladly go with the captain to the bottom of the sea." "All right, "Who's with us?" he shouted, waving the pistol. Mr. Job stepped forward. He stood only as tall as Jackal's shoulder, but he drew himself up to his full height, his white hair glinting in the moonlight. "How do you know ye have a treasure?" he asked. "Take this, Spaulding," Jackal said as he handed the pistol over to a sailor with a silver earring. Then he reached inside his shirt and brought out the rolled-up scroll of leather. "Here it is, lads, the map to make ye rich." Shouts went up from the 6 crewmen who were part of the mutiny. The others stared, some confused and some beginning to rub their hands in glee at the thought of easy treasure. Mr. Job looked stricken, but he kept his mouth shut in a tight line. "They are drunk with greed," Abby thought in horror. "Oh, poor Captain Chandler." Jackal stuffed the map back in his shirt. "Then it's decided. Ye're outvoted, Captain, though we hold ye no ill will." Abby gasped, covering her mouth with a shaking hand. If the captain was made to walk the plank, she and Luke would be left alone with this madman. Jackal focused his attention on her, tugging her braid so hard she cried out in pain. "Don't worry, little shark bait. The captain won't leave ye. You'll be joining him at the bottom of the sea." Abby felt like a fist had slammed into her stomach. She couldn't catch her breath. "Boy," Jackal said, addressing Luke, "if ye want to live, ye can join us men and learn ye a trade that will make ye rich." Luke put his fist in front of Jackal's face. "Why don't you pick on someone your own size, you hairy pirate?" Jackal sobered, then slammed a fist into Luke's mouth, sending him sprawling across the teak deck. "Luke!" Abby ran to him, cradling his unconscious head in her lap. Blood oozed from his cut lip. Shaking with rage, she glared up at Jackal. You shark! You varmint! You beast!" "Get 'em all overboard!" Jackal yelled angrily. "The girl's a jinx to our plans." Several sailors began to move toward her. When one grabbed her roughly by the arms, tearing away from Luke, Abby screamed in terror. Luke came to then, but he couldn't move right away. Dragged to the railing, Abby peered over and realized her worst nightmare was coming true. In another second, she would be swimming in the sea with the sharks that came from below with sandpaper skin and razor-sharp teeth. Oh, no. What is going to happen to Abby and Luke and the poor captain now? That is chapter 13 of Abby Lost at Sea. This is Grandma Carla, and I'll see you next time.